Well, folks, Hisense snuck one in on us. Just when we thought we knew what the Hisense 2024 TV lineup looked like, surprise, there's a new model. Say hello to the new Hisense U9. Oh, and since we're here, how about we take a closer look at the new UX as well. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison, and by now, you've probably heard that Hisense has a previously unannounced new addition to its ULED TV lineup, the U9. I'm going to give you the full rundown here in terms of critical specs, pricing, and expected availability timeframe for that TV, along with some new info on the UX series. Then, I'm going to dive into the U9's performance because I did take some time to measure it and spend some time watching it as well. So let's start with how the U9 fits into the new Hisense lineup. You may recall that last year, the U8K went up as high as 85 inches, and the UX series started at 85 inches and went up from there. The price and performance gap between the U8 and the UX series was substantial. This year, the U9 comes in to bridge the gap, both in terms of price and performance. But overall, we can also see that Hisense has allowed its technology to trickle down. Today's U8N, which I've already reviewed, has many similar performance specs to last year's UX, believe it or not. The U9, in some ways, outperforms last year's UX. And so the new 2024 UX is just on an entirely different level. So let's take a look at the lineup in as organized a manner as we can. The Hisense ULED lineup starts with the U6 at the lower end, then comes the U7, and then you get to the U8 series. Now, the 75-inch U8N promises about 3,000 nits, though I've already measured it at closer to 3,500 nits. And it comes in at $3,000. And you can buy that TV right now if you want. The 85-inch U9 increases peak brightness to 5,000 nits. It's expected to cost $4,000 and is expected late summer. And then we get to the absolutely over-the-top UX series. There's a 98-inch model that is promised to hit about 5,000 nits. It's expected to cost $8,000 and is coming out sometime in the summer. That's about as specific as I can get right now. Now, don't forget, Hisense still offers the 100-inch U8K from last year, as well as a new U76N this year, both huge screens that cost far less than the premium 98-inch UX here. And finally, there's the big one, the one we saw at CES, the 110-inch UX. It's promised to hit up to 10,000 nits for brief moments in content. There is no expected price, and this will be the last TV to come out, expected this fall. Now, I was here for a spring launch event earlier this week, and as you can see, Hisense had its entire lineup on display. And even just walking from one TV to the next or looking across the room, you could clearly see how each subsequent TV series gets brighter as you move up the line. However, I came back today to test these TVs, and today I'm going to tell you about the U9 series. I also tested the UX behind me here, and I'll cover this 98-inch beast in a separate video coming soon. Now, before I get into some of the nit nerd stuff on the U9, I want to update you on a few things that have taken place since I got here. First, if you've seen my review of the U8N, one of the little quirks that bugged me was that if you turned the volume all the way down, not muted, just turned down, you got this mute icon in the upper right corner of the screen, and you couldn't turn it off. I talked to Hisense engineers about that, and they are now working on an update that will remove that, which I think is great. I also brought up the fact that the U8N that I had tested, like the U9N that I was testing right at that moment, tracked very high on what's called the EOTF curve in the filmmaker mode preset when I was measuring it. That means that it pumped up the brightness in HDR beyond what was called for by the content. Hisense let me know that that was not how their implementation of filmmaker mode was actually supposed to work. So we dug in a little bit further. Ultimately, we ended up unplugging the TV, plugging it back in, and voila, it measured perfectly. Now, Hisense suspects that as I was playing with one particular setting by turning it on and off and on and off and on and off in rapid succession, I may have triggered an as yet undiscovered bug. So they're going to look into it. But it's a good reminder that the TV that I'm testing here does not have its final firmware version. In fact, a few minor things are subject to change. But guys, I hope the final version isn't too far off from the TV that I tested here, because the TV I tested here was exemplary. Everything from the white balance to the grayscale to color accuracy and color saturation, both in SDR and HDR, measured well below the threshold of visible error to the human eye, across the board. Now, like the U8N, the U9 here has a broad range of adjustments that will allow you to dial it in for viewing in a very dark room or a very bright room. Or if you just like an extremely bright picture, honestly, I have never tested brighter TVs than those I tested here at Hisense's event this weekend. And I mean by a significant margin brighter, folks. The 75-inch U9 I tested claims peak brightness of up to 4,000 nits. I got 4,500 nits, and it held that number for a good 2 seconds, which is longer than it sounds in the context of moving content. That was before it dimmed down to 3,000 nits, which, as a reminder, is still higher than most TVs can get. Unfortunately, we just aren't able to show you the full impact of this brightness. Just to keep the TV from looking blown out in this video, we had to shut down the exposure on our camera. Now, if it's any clue, you'll notice that the area around the TV appears to be dark, but in reality, it's not. We are in a fully lit room here with a studio light and a light tube, both on full blast. I'm pleased to see, though, that the brightness power is being handled very responsibly here. It pokes at you from little HDR highlights in content, and it helps lift SDR content a bit by raising the average picture level high enough that the image can do battle with almost any level of ambient light and still appear to be a high contrast image. Now, speaking of contrast, Hisense told me approximately how many zones the U9 models use, and frankly, it just doesn't matter. It's a lot of zones. Probably more zones than it needs to pull off the nearly bloom and halo-free images that I'm seeing here. What really matters is that the backlight control system can operate swiftly and accurately. And at least with peak brightness on high and local dimming on high, those were the default settings for filmmaker mode, I'm seeing no fluctuations. Now, please take that with a grain of salt, because I did not have time to torture test the TVs here. But I mean, I put on some content that I know to be challenging, and I saw no slow backlight reactions. Now, if you do want a guaranteed lightning fast backlight response, the U9 and up offers a new feature that you won't find on other Hisense TVs that speeds up the backlight at the expense of some brightness. It's kind of like black frame insertion, I'm told, but according to our camera, it is not black frame insertion because there is no recordable flicker. That is about as much info I have on this feature. Hisense didn't have much in the way of details to share, but it's an interesting one to see nonetheless. Just as the measurements suggested, my subjective analysis was that color was spot on and well saturated. I did measure that the TV does 100% of DCI-P3 and about 77% of BT 2020 color space. And as for motion, just a bit of judder in 24 FPS content, even with Hisense's film motion setting on, but absolutely nothing to get upset about. I really had to get up on the TV to spot it. Upscaling and image cleanup, again, looked really good to me in the short time that I had here. I watched about 40 minutes of various YouTube videos at various levels of quality and did not see any egregious color banding or macro blocking, nor did I see a bunch of noise. I need to put the U9 side by side with the U8 to compare the different processors. The U9 gets Hisense's best processor, just like the UX series, but all the content I watched looked great. And I think the biggest improvement in the U9 over the U8 is the use of the ADS Pro panel. Having this great picture quality available at more angles and thus more seating positions is just so important. That was my biggest gripe about the U8N, was that it looked great dead on, but as soon as you move off to the side, you lose a lot of that contrast and saturation. So for me, this is a big upgrade, and one reason that I might suggest getting a 75-inch U9 over an 85-inch U8 this year if picture quality trumps size in your list of priorities. You know what? I'm not shocked by anything I saw here today. Hisense has made all the right improvements to their processing. Hisense is on the record saying they want to provide the brightest, highest value TVs on the market, and they're out here doing that. They've dialed in the accuracy for filmmaker and theater picture modes. The interface is snappy, the processing is solid, especially for the price. So you're getting cleaner images from cable and satellite signals. The motion is well within acceptable parameters for movie watching. Just for what you spend on these TVs, it's just overwhelming what you get. Now, I know a lot of folks are bringing up concerns like consistency, reliability, and longevity. Those are valid concerns. They're unfortunately hard for me to speak to though. I get these TVs for a few weeks or months at a time. In this case, I got a few hours. And I can't put them through hardcore long-term stress tests. I can say that I know of 5 Hisense TVs across various production years dating back as far as 4 years ago, and all of them are going strong in their homes. The eldest is a little more sluggish in the user interface because that TV had an older processor for the smart TV interface, but the rest of them are zipping right along. I understand that that is purely anecdotal, but that's what I know. So that's an early look at the U9. You may have noticed I didn't talk about the speakers, and that's because the audio tuning is not yet done on this TV. And frankly, the room in which the U9 was placed would have been terrible for audio testing. In fact, I would go so far as to say I wouldn't trust any audio evaluation on the U9 from this particular event because of the room that it was in. It's just too small, and it was wall mounted. I won't test the audio until I can get it into my studio, but when I do, I'll let you hear it. And as a reminder, the U8N subwoofer is something of a marvel. And the U9 here, with its forward-firing side-mounted speakers, which I know many of you are gonna hate, is supposed to be a much better overall system. Try not to hate too much on those speakers. I think they may get lower profile by the time that the U9 comes out. I also have nothing to compare the U9 to yet. I mean, we can do a specs comparison, but we really need to see the TV up against like price competitors. It's early days in the 2024 TV review season. Hisense just got me the U8N super early, but for this one, we'll have to wait a while for the U9 to land at the studio. And you know what? That's okay. I think it's gonna be worth the wait. Thanks as always for watching, everyone. What do you think about the U9 so far? ADS Pro, unprecedented brightness, solid tone mapping, incredible black levels. Leave your comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. And until then, here's 2 other videos I think you might like. I wish I could do a surprise.